Advanced permissions. We will see in this lecture advanced permission. We have seen previously that what is the default permission and how we can change the basic permissions. Then we have seen how we can do change the advanced permission, advanced ACL permission on files and directory. So we have seen how we can change them, we can see them. To see the permission, we can use get FACL command to see the permissions of the file. So we can see the permissions, and for changing this advanced ACL permission, we use set FACL command. We have seen it, how we can change these permissions. Now the default permissions, the permissions which comes by default when any user creates the file, whether it is root or the normal user, this default permission comes. Like for the file, if the root user creates, it gets this permission for the files, and if it creates any directory, then it gets this permission. And if the normal user creates a file, then it gets a different permission default, and for the file and for the directory also it gets the default permission, different permission than the root user. Now why it is happening? Because of the umask. For the root user, the umask is 022, and for the normal user, for example, if I switch to normal user and then when I use the umask command, so it shows 002. For the root, the umask is 022, and for the normal user it is 002. Now based on this umask, it gets the minus from the default permissions of Unix. It is coming from the Unix basic permissions, so it minus these umask from it. So if suppose the file is created 666 is the default, so if root creates, the umask is 022 will be minuses from there, and the permission will remain as 644 for the file. And for the directory, the default is 777. Again, if the root user creates the file directory, this umask get minus and it will become 755. And for normal users umask is 002. So when normal user creates the directory, the permission will become 775. And for the file, if normal user creates the file, so the umask for the normal user is 022 and it get minus, and then it will become 664. So 664, that means read write read write for owner user, read write for group owner, and read for the others. Now we can do also one more thing, that we can change the umask. We can change the umask. So user can change its umask to change it to all the creating file like default permission. So if suppose I change the umask for this user to 011, now when I check, so this user's umask is now become 011. Now when it creates any file, right now it has no file, so if I create any file here, F1, so that umask will be minus from there, and you can see the permission, and the permission is like this. Same as for the root user, if you change the umask, then you can change the umask by using the umask command. Now it is temporary, but if you want to change it, then you can change the variable for the umask. Now changing the umask will change all the upcoming files. After the changing umask, you will change any file, you will create any file and directory, then it will change the default permission according to the umask. Now when we check the umask, it shows this. I have told you that the umask for the root user is 022, and for normal users it is 002, but there is one more 0 is there which I have not mentioned. Now that 0 is also about the permission, it is also about the advanced permission. Now what that 0 is, That 0 is also a 3 bit of permission. So in that 0 there are also 3 bits. Now 3 bits, that means it can be 0 if the bits are off, and if the first bit is on then you will get the value 1. If the second bit is on you will get the value 2, and if the third bit gets on you will get the value 4. But this values and these bits are having a different meaning and different permissions. It is not like read, write and execute. So here in this first 0, when we don't mention it, it always remains 0. Like for example, when we change the permission numerically for any file or directory, so when we don't mention anything, like for example, I want to change permission for this file, so I will use the command chmod, and by default the permission is 644. I want to make 666 for that file. So it changes the permission of that file and it becomes 666, but I am not mentioning the first 0 here. So when we don't mention this first 0, it always remains 0 here. So the permissions are always like this, and when we don't mention it, this, then it will always be the 0. Now here we can have a value of 1, that means the first bit on. We can have the value of 2, that means the second bit on, and also we can have a value of 4, that means the third bit on. Now what that do, what happens when we have 1 here on, or we enable the first bit? So what we get? So when we enable the first bit, what we will get here, a value, decimal value 1. Now what that means? That means you will get sticky bit. We will get sticky bit. Now what is a sticky bit? So that first bit is actually sticky bit. So when we enable that bit, that means we are enabling the sticky bit. Now what this sticky bit is about and what it do here, and also this sticky bit is for directory. That means we can also enable the sticky bit on files, but that is not useful. This is basically for directories. It is useful to enable the sticky bits on directory. Now what it do here, what this sticky bit do? So first, so I will show you an example here. Now for example, we have created one directory here, test. Now this directory, if I check the permission of this directory, so it is created by the root user, and owner is root, group owner is sales, and the permission for the directory is everyone has everything. Now I will change the group also, so that we will get normal. I will give the permission to root. Okay, now this user, this group, this directory is having the default settings. Now everyone has the read, write, execute permissions. Now when I go to this directory and check what are files there, so there is one file there, and it is created by the root user, owner is root user, group owner is also root, and this is the permission for the file is a read, write for the owner user, that means for the root user, and no other user can do anything. So other users cannot do on this, cannot edit the file, they can only read the file. Now let's check the advanced permission. Do we have any advanced? So we can see here the dot, that means there is no advanced permissions configured for this file. It is having a default permissions. Okay, now I will switch to other user. Now I will switch to user 1, and I will be in the same directory. Now as a user 1, I will create one file, u1, and I will put something here and save it. Now when I check, this file is created by user 1. So owner is user 1 and the group owner is also user 1, and the default permissions are coming like this: read write, and read. So other users are only having the read permission. So I will switch from here, and then I will log in as a other user, user 2. Now user 2 sees here, when user 2 come to this directory, it says two files are there. One is for the admin, for the root user, and the other one is created by the user 1. So user 2 can do what? It can read those files because other users are having the read permission. It can read the file of administrator, the root, and also it can read the file of user 1. Now if it tries to edit the file of user 1, it cannot, or if it is try to edit the file of administrator, it cannot do that, but it can create its own file. It can create its own file and save it. So we have user 1 file, user 2 file, and also root users file. All the files for everyone, it is read permission, so others can't do anything. Only the owner of the file is doing something or anything. Same as for other users, like if suppose I logged in as a user 3 now, so user 3 can also read other users file. It can read the file of user 1, it can read the file of user 2, and it also can read the file of administrator. But if it try to edit the files, it gets the error. But still it can create its own file. This is user 3 file. So it can create its own file. Now see what happens. This user cannot edit any of the other users file. Not user 1 file, not user 2 file, not user admin file, root file. Now it cannot edit, but it try to delete the file. It will try to delete the file for user 1. So it say I want to delete the file of user 1. It only have the read permission on the file, but it wants to delete the file. It says, do you want to delete the write protected file, because it is not having a write permission? It says yes, I want to delete. Now what happened? There is no error comes. Now there is no error, that means what? It can see that the user 1 file is deleted. Now who deleted the file? User 3 deleted the user 1's file. So user 1 file deleted by the user 3, and also on that file this user does not have any write permission. It has only read permission, but still it deleted the file of user 1. Not even user 1. User 1 is the normal user. Now it will try to remove the file of admin, the root user. Again it is saying, do you want to remove the write protected file? It says yes, and then no error. That means it also deleted the file of root user. Now what and how it is happening here? Now how is it possible? Very simple. Remember when we gave a permission on the directory, to write.
Yes, sir.
And remember, when we give the permission to write, that means what? You can add files, and also it can remove the files. So if we check the permission of the directory, it says read write to all. That means for other users, everyone is having read, write and execute. Now whether it is the normal user or root, all the users are having the read, write permission. Now read permission, that means it can read the content. Execute permission, that means it can go inside the directory, so users can go inside the directory. And write permission will allow those users to create file in the directory. Now create file in the directory and also delete file. So when we give a user permission to create a file, that means the write permission, so that user can do also remove the file and delete the files. Now no matter the file belongs to any other user, the owner is different user, and also the file is not having any permission. But even if the directory is having the permission to write, then it can remove the file for the other users also. Now this is the problem. Now if I don't give the write permission, for example this user 3 is doing these malicious things, it is not a good user, it is deleting other users data. Now we have given them this common directory to create those files, to store the data, but we have and also we have allowed them to create files and add files into this directory. All those users, user 1, 2, 3, user 4, we have tell them to create and add your files here in this directory, and for that we have given them the write permission. Now when we give them a write permission, they do what? They can add the file, but they can also delete the file. Now here the problem is they can delete other users file also. Now this user is doing some bad thing and it is doing what? It is removing other users file, and then it's saying that no, I did not did this, but because of the permission it can do that. Now what we can do to save this and solve the problem? So in this, the sticky bit will become handy. So what we can use here, we can use this sticky bit. Now what the sticky bit will do? When we enable the sticky bit on this directory with the write permission, remember the write permission will be there. That means all the users can create the file. We cannot remove the write permission. If suppose I remove the write permission for user 3 because it is deleting the user's file, then user 3 can also not create the file. So we want that user should create the file, but it should not delete the other user's file. Then what we can do? We can enable the sticky bit. So we can enable the sticky bit on this directory, so that what happen after the enabling of sticky bit, all the users will get the permission, whatever, like if I have given the write permission, so they will use the write permission, but they cannot remove other users file. They can only do whatever they want. They can do it with their own file, but they cannot do anything on the other user's file. So what we can do here, we can use the sticky bit to solve this problem. The problem is that when you give a write permission to user on a directory, so it can create the file and also remove the file. And removing means any user file, even root user's file can also be deleted. So we don't want user to delete other users file. Then what we can do? We can enable the sticky bit, and that is why I told you that sticky bit is useful for directory. We can do this for the file also, but it is not useful. Now I want to enable the sticky bit on this directory. So what I will do, I will use the okay, I have logged in as a normal user, so I will log out. So now I am logged in as a root. So what I will do, I will use chmod. Now remember the permission for the directory is 777, whatever the permission we have given. We will not change that permission. Only what we will do, we will add 1 here. Remember, if you don't add anything, it will always remain 0, whether you mention it or not. Normally we don't mention it, so it will remain 0. Now we want to mention it, we want to enable the sticky bit, so we'll do what? We will use 1 here. Now when we use 1 here, that means we are enabling the sticky bit on this directory. Now when you check the permissions, you will see the color is changed. The color for the directory is changed. It was previously this color, but now it is changed to this color. And what more you see here, you will have, this is the user permission, this is the group permission, and this is the permission for others. So here you will see this T. This T means it is a sticky bit. Previously it was X there. If you see here, it was read, write, execute, but now you will see here read, write and T. Now this T means it is a sticky bit. Now what happens when user wants to create the file, they can create because they are having the right permission, but when they try to delete other users file, they will not be able to delete. Right now user 1 files is deleted, so user 1 will come and create its own file. Like I will create again, so user 1 file will be this is user 1 file. So we have the files for user 1, 2 and 3. Now I will log in as a other user. For example, the same user 3 user I will log in, and then what, user 3 can still create the file. If I check to create the file UU3, so it can create the file. So this file was created previously, now it has created this file. So user 3 is still having a permission to create the file. Now it will try to edit other users file. For example, try to edit the user 1 file. It cannot edit the user 2 file. It cannot, because they don't have a permission. Now it wants to remove the file. So now remember, the sticky bit is on. So it will try to remove the file. It says, do you want to remove the regular file? It says yes. Now it says the operation not permitted. It cannot remove because of this sticky bit. Now if it tries, if the user 3 try to remove it forcefully, and it says I want to remove forcefully, then forcefully means only what? It will not go for the question answer. It will not ask anything, yes or no. But it will try to delete, but it is not allowing it. It says operation not permitted. So it cannot remove it forcefully, not even recursively. Operation not permitted. So user 3 cannot remove other users file, or user 1 cannot remove other users file. But they can do whatever they want to do with their own file. Like these 2 files are created by user 3 itself. So if user 3 wants to remove these files, so it can remove these files. So it can still remove its own file, but it cannot remove other users file or edit other user files if they don't have any permissions. So sticky bit, when we enable on the directory, what it will do, it will save it will not allow the user to remove or delete other users data. They can do whatever they want to do with their own data. So when we enable the sticky bit, we can see it shows here in other users permission, it shows this T. So what command we use to enable the sticky bit? We use numerical way. Numerical way, that means we add the number 1 in the permission, where we add by default. So we use chmod 1777 for the directory. This is what we used numerically. But suppose if you want to configure the sticky bit symbolically, so we can do this by using this. For the other users, we will add T. Remember, it is in the other users, and we can see the T there. So this is the way we can add the sticky bit in symbolically. Now it is okay. I have logged in as a user, so I will logged out. So if we want to give a permission, the sticky bit symbolically, so we can do this by other user plus T. So we can use this command to enable the sticky bit symbolically, and for numerically we just have to add whatever the permission is there. We just have to add 1 at the beginning. That will enable the sticky bit. Now if we want to remove the sticky bit, so what we can do? Now numerically, if we do this, if you do this, that means we are not mentioning the first value. Now when we are not mentioning the first value, then it will still remain the default, the previous one. That means if the sticky bit is there, then it will remain the sticky bit. So if we want to remove it, then we have to explicitly give it here 0. This will remove the sticky bit, or for numerically, for the symbolically we can do this other minus t. So this will do remove the sticky bit. Now when we check the permissions, now we can see it is normal now, there is no sticky bit, and now if the user try to remove the file, it can remove now. Now this user 3 can remove the other user's file also. User 1 remove, user 2 remove, and its own file also remove, because we remove the sticky bit. So we need sticky bit to protect this, and when after enabling the sticky bit, what we get, users cannot remove other users data. Now one more thing you will see this T, and that means what, it is a sticky bit, but sometime you will see the capital T here. Instead of this small t, you will see capital T. Now what that means? That means very simple, there is no execute permission for others. Actually when we see the permission like this with the long listing, so what we see here, we see read, write, execute, but right now instead of X we are seeing T here. Now how we will know that there is execute permission is there or not? That means for other users we have execute permission or we don't have execute permission. We don't know, because there is no X here, it is not showing X, it is only showing T. Now that is why we see the capital T. That means when you have the sticky bit with the execute permission, you will see small t, and when you have the sticky bit without execute permission, you will see capital T. Now for example, I will remove this. Now there is no sticky bit, and remember the execute permission is there. Now what I will do, I will use the sticky bit without execute permission. Now without execute permission means execute permission is there, so I will give this is what 777. Now what, instead of 7 for the others, I will give 6. Now 6 means read, write, but no execute. Now with this I will enable this sticky bit. That means for the other users I am not giving the execute permission, and also enabling the sticky bit. Now when you check, you will see the capital T here. That means what, there is no execute permission available for the others. Now when we have the execute permission for the others, then we will see the small t, and when we don't have the execute permission for the others, we will see the capital T. And we can remove the sticky bit, and we can see there is no execute permission for others. So when we don't have execute permission, that means with the sticky bit, so you will see capital T, and when you have the execute permission with the sticky bit, we will see the small t, and without execute permission you will see the capital T. So this is what the sticky bit. Now after 1 we can have 2 there also. That means with this permission, when we don't mention 0 the first value, so it will remain 0, but it is a 3-bit value, so it can be 0, it can be 1 when the first bit get on, and when the second bits get on, you will get the value 2. Now what that means, what happens and what that means when we have the second bit enabled and we have the value 2, decimal value 2. So when we enable the second bit, we will get the decimal value 2. Now this decimal value 2 and the second bit will do what? It will enable SGID. It is called SGID. Now what that means? It is very simple. It is what? Setting group ID. So it is setting the group ID. Now what that means? Group ID means what? That means what? If suppose we have, and also this is useful for the directory, it is not useful for files. We can enable it, we can do the command, we can run the command and it will run successfully, but it is not useful. This is also useful only for the directories. So for example, we have this directory here and the directory owner is the root user and the group owner for this directory is I will say sales. Now when any user creates any file into this directory, suppose user root is an owner and it has given the permission for all the other users to create the file. So for example, when user 1 creates the file, then what happened? The owner user will be user 1 and the group owner will be also user 1. This will be the default permission, and with the default permission user owner will get the read write permission and the group owner will also get the read write permission because of the default permission of users, and others users will get what? Read permission. So this is what the default thing. If user 2 creates the file and user 2 creates the file, so owner will be user 2 and group owner will be also user 2, user 2's primary group, and the permission by default because of the umask for the normal user, user 1 owner will get the read write, group owner will get the read write and the other users will get read permission. Now what is the usefulness here for the setting the GID? Now for example, suppose there is a scenario here where we have a user here, HR suppose, and this user, I want to give this user write permission on any file created on this directory. For example, this is /test / this is the test directory, and I want to give this user permission to write any file created on this directory, whether it is created by user 1, user 2, user 3, no matter who creates the file. I want to give this user a permission of writing permission on this all the files inside this directory. Now how we can do that? So first we can do that by continuously monitoring the directory. For example, what we do, suppose this is the directory, so I will continuously monitor the directory by using this command ll or ls-l to that directory. I will do the continuous thing this. Now as suppose someone creates the file, like for example user 1 creates the file, so what I will do, for example user 1 creates the file, now suddenly user 1 creates the file. I saw when I list it, I saw that user 1 creates the file. So what I will do, I will just go to chmod and then I will use or I will use set fscl to give the permission, set fscl hyphen modify for user and then the user name and the permission to read write, and then on the file I will do this, and then after running the command I will keep monitoring the directory. Now this is very this is a job like you have to sit for the long time and you just have to do it manually. You just have to monitor it every time, and when the file comes you will change the permission. Now for that you have to keep one user or one admin to do only this thing. Now this is also like, okay, we can do that. Now for example, suddenly 5 users created 10 files. You will get 50 files here suddenly. Then you have to change the permission for all the files right now. And how you will do that? You will use the command set fscl, and then you will use one by one you change the permission for all the files, 50 files. It can be difficult. So this is not the good idea. Now what we can do? We can do one more thing. We can do one more thing. We can add this user into primary group of these users. Now primary group, that means user 1's primary group, user 2's primary group, user 3 primary group. Now what happened when they create the file, by default, because of the umask, the primary group will get the read write permission, and because of the group, this user will also get the permission. Now we don't have to do anything manually, it will be automatic. Automatically this user will get the read write permission because of the primary group. But there is a problem here. The problem here is that we are adding the user into primary group of other user. That means not only on this directory, if this user creates any file in anywhere, this user will get the read write permission because of the primary group. Now that is what we don't want. We want that this only this directory. So that also we can't do. So what we can do now, we can, instead of adding this user directly into the primary group, we will add this user into this separate group. And then what we will do, we will start monitoring the file again, monitoring the directory again, and when someone creates the file, we will change the group membership, we will change the primary group membership, we will change the primary group from user 1 to sales. Now again, this is very difficult if you have continuously hundreds of files creating. Now that is what we can do. We can solve the problem by using the SGID. This is very simple. SGID means setting the group ID, and this is also for directory. Now for example, if this directory I want to set the GID, then what happen? It will set the group owner's ID. Remember, it will set the group owner's ID on that directory. Now what that means? This group is already the owner of that directory. This group is already the owner of this owner group of this directory. But when we set the GID, that means what? We are setting the owner group's ID on that particular directory. Now what that means? It is actually means the inheritance. It enables the inheritance. Remember, in Linux there is no inheritance. By default it is not having any inheritance, not like Windows. In Windows, when we give any permission to user on directory, so by default that permission will be inherited to all the files and directories inside that directory. This thing does not happen in Linux. When you assign any permission on the directory, that will not inherit it to any files inside the directory, and not even the subdirectories. Now we can enable the SGID, and that means what? We set the group ID on the on that directory. Now what happened after that? No matter who creates the file, if suppose user 1 creates the file, so owner user will remain the user 1, but the group owner will be the group owner of the directory. That means the group ownership will be inherited from the directory to inside all the files. So whatever the file we create inside this directory, and it is created by any user, that directory, that file will get the group inheritance from the directory. So the group of the owner group of the directory will be inherited to all the files and directories inside this directory after setting the GID. Now if the files are existing already, so if the files are already there, then the permission of those files will not change. The group ownership of that files will not change. Only the new file after setting the GID will change. Whatever the files are already there, we have to change that manually. Now by this, what happens when we set the GID? When we set the GID on the directory, then this group will inherit it to all the files inside it. Now because this user is member of this group, so because of that it will get read write permission on all the files, and only on this directory, not on any other directory. So this is why we enable the enable this second bit, that is setting the GID, and we do this, and after doing this, what happens, it will inherit the group ownership of the directory on all the files inside the directory. Now let's see how it works. Okay, so for example, again we have the same directory. Let's see the test directory. Now we see this is having a permission for all. Now the owner user is root and group owner is also root. Now we should not we should not add normal users into this root users primary group. So we should do what? We should change the group membership chgrp to sales for this group, so that whenever we add want to give any user a permission on these files or inside the directory, then we can add them into this particular group, not into the root group. Now what I will do, I will set the GID of this group on this directory by enabling that second bit. Now after enabling it, whatever the files we will create inside it, so the file will be owned by that primary group. But this existing file will not change, only the new files will be changed. But the existing file, there is one file is already there, this file will not change. Now let's see how we can enable it. Very simple, chmod, this is the permission which is already there, but when we don't mention, this will remain 0, but this time I want to enable it, and I want to enable the second bit, so I will say 2, and then I will mention the directory name. Now this will do what? It will enable this, it will set the GID of the group into this directory. Now when you check the permission again, now we can see under the group permission, you can see the group owner permission, now you will see S here. So instead of X, now we can see S. Now that means what? This GID is, the set GID is configured, and that second bit is enabled. Now the file which is already there in the directory, the file is not changed. But now when the other user comes and create the files, so the existing file is not changed, but if suppose the other user comes, like for example user 1 or 2 comes, and now user 1, this user creates the file, now what we see here, the owner is user 2, this is because the user 2 is created the file, but the group owner is the owner of that group, owner of that directory. Existing file is not changed, but the new file when it is created, it is changed. So no matter who creates it, for example user 3 creates it, now user 3 comes and then it will create the file here, so the owner will remain user 3, but you can see the group owner is again the owner of this directory. If user 4 comes, or it will create the file, it will be the same thing. So it is doing what? It is inheriting the permissions of group from the directory, because we did what? We set the GID of the directory. So this is what? Set GID, SGID, and this is the second bit. Now if we want to disable it, or if we want to enable it symbolically, then what we do? So if we want to enable it symbolically, then what we do? So we can see here that under the group owner permission, owner group permission, we'll see S here. Now that means if we want to do it symbolically, then what we will do? We will do chmod G plus S to enable the sticky, to set the GID as a symbolically. Now for removing it and for the numerical way, we use this 2 here. Now to remove it, we have to mention 0 here, or symbolically we'll do minus, and this will do what? It will remove this SGID. And now again we will see X here. Now one more thing, sometime you will see capital S. Now capital S means again, it is what? If you have the execute permission, then you will see small s. When you don't have execute permission, you will see capital S. For example, right now we have the execute permission. With execute permission, you will see small s, and without execute permission, you will see capital S. As we see, the execute permission is there. That is why we got the small s. Now if I give if I set the GID without the execute permission, that means I will use chmod 7 is all. Now for the group permission, I will use 6. That means I'm not giving the execute permission to the group, and also I'm enabling this SGID. Now what it will do? It will show you capital S. Now when you check, you see the capital S here, and that means what? It is the SGID. It is the second bit enabled, but without execute permission. Okay, so now I will remove it. And then it will become normal. Okay, so this is what the second bit, that is decimal value 2, and that is for the SGID. Now the third bit, and that third bit value is 4. So instead of giving 1 or 2, we can give 4. Now when we give 4, then what happens? So with 4, when we give 4, that means SUID. Now we have seen SGID, that means group ID. So this SUID is for the user ID, and this is like setting the user ID. Now this one is, we can do it on the directory also, but this is useful for the executable file. So basically this is useful for the executable files. Now what that means, and what is the benefit of using the SGID? Now this one is useful for the executable file, not only the normal file, it is for the executable file. Now I will do what? I will open another terminal here. Now on this terminal, I will switch to other user. For example, I will switch to user 1. Now I have logged in as a user 1 here, and I will try to run something here. Now I will use this command. We use this command to do what? To read the file, create the file, and also for append the file. Now user 1 is working on this file. It has opened the file. It is working on that file by using the cat command, and right now it is running. The cat command is continuously running. Now I will go to the other terminal. Now you will see here, I will use this command ps. Now this ps command is to check the process which is running in our system. So I will check the process by using the ef command, that means the executable and full view. Now what we will see here, remember the user 1 is already running some command there. It is running the cat command. So when you see here, you will see the user 1 has switched. We have switched to user 1, and user 1 gets the bash, and you can see it is on sudo terminal 1. Sudo terminal 1 is this other terminal. Now what we are seeing here, that also there is cat command running. So when the user logs in, so it gets the bash, and you can see here it is by user 1. Root user has run the command to switch the user, and on this terminal, sudo terminal 1, then after switching the terminal, the user will get the bash, and then user runs this command, this cat command. Okay, what I will do here, it will make little confusion, so I will do what, I will go to the exact terminal. So I will go to the other command terminal here, and here I will logged in as a user 1, and here I will open the file to edit or append. Now it is running and run by the user 1. Now again when we check the process here, so what we see here, that on the terminal 2, user 1 has logged in on this terminal, TTY terminal 2, and he got the bash, and then after that it did what, it executed this command, and it is still working, the command is still open on the same terminal TTY2. Now what we see here, that the user 1, we can see the user 1 is running this command. So basically what happens when someone runs the command, like this user 1 has run this cat command, so what it do, the system will run the command on the privilege of that particular user. It identify the user by using the UID. So that UID is for the system. We know the user by name, user 1, but the system knows the user by its UID. And based on the UID, the user will get the privilege. So when user execute any command or any executable, it will get the privilege based on the UID of that user. So if the user is normal user, so it will get the privilege based on that normal user. If the user is root, and if the root user is executing something, so it will get the privilege of root user, and it can have an access of all the files which is accessible by the root user. Now this command cat is run by the normal user, and we can see the name here. We can see the name here because machine, our system understand, and it will identify the user, and it knows that user 1 has executed this command. Now this command is actually a file, it is an executable file. If you see which command to find out the cat, so we can see that it is under USR bin, and it is an executable file. If you see the list, if you list that file under USR bin cat, so we can see that this file is owned by user root, and group owner is also root, and by the color we know that this is what, executable file. Why? Because other user and root user also have the execute permission. If you see the permission, this is read, write, execute for the root user. Then for the others and groups, it is only read and execute. So others can only do what? Read and execute. So user 1 can read and also execute. Now remember the permissions, importance of the permission. If it is having the read execute permission, then only it can do what? Execute the file, and that is why the user can execute, and all the users can execute because other users are having the execute permissions. So when root user execute the file, it will run by the root's privilege, and when other user execute the file, it will run by the other user's privilege. Now for example, suppose root user have created one script, executable script. For example, root user wants to do some task. In the task, it needs to run 50 commands. Now for running the 50 commands one by one, it is difficult. So what they do, they create these scripts. Now script means it is a normal file, and in the file administrators do what? They add all those 50 commands line by line. line by line all the commands which they want to execute to do the particular task. So for doing the particular task, they want to run those 50 commands. So they do what? They create a file. In the file, they add all those 50 commands line by line, and then make it executable. Make it executable, that means they add the execute permission. Now when they execute it, then what happened? The commands of the file will be executed one by one. Okay, I will show you an example here. I will create a file here. Test.sh. Now in the file I will give the command mkdir to create one directory, say script under the slash. The next command I will say to touch the file, and under that same directory which we have created, script, I will say and save the file. So this is the file I created here, and this file contains two commands. Now it is not having the execute permission. It is not showing green because it is not having execute permission, not for the root user also. So what I will do, I will give the execute permission to myself. So I will say I want to have plus execute on this file. Now the root user gets the, and the other users also get the execute permission. Now I can execute it. So I will run it by this, giving the local path or even the absolute path, or I can run it by using the command sh. Now what happened here, when I execute it, those commands will also execute it, and those commands are also executed. Now those commands will do what? It will do the job. Now you see here under the slash, it has created this directory. That was our first command. The next command is to create the file. So let's check that directory, and the next command is to create the file inside the directory. So I gave two commands to create the directory and then create the file inside the directory, and it has done. So it has done because of that script. So that is what the script do. So when the administrator wants to run the commands, like for example 50 commands, it is very difficult to run by one. So administrators do what? They create scripts, and then whenever they want to run, they just run the script, and then all those 50 commands will run one by one. Now these commands are administrator's command, and the administrator commands can only be executed by the administrator. If other user execute the command, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. That means, for example, I will show you, this is root. I logged in as a root. Now if I run this command with this option, we'll see this output. Now if I switch to other user, for example, we'll go to this other user which is logged in here, and I will try to run the same command with this option. I get nothing here. Why I am not getting any output? Because this command is actually for root user. We can check, we can verify by using this switch command and the command name, that where this command is. So this command is under sbin. Now sbin means it can only be executed by the super user, that is administrator. So when the root runs this command, it gets the output. When normal user runs, they does not get the output. Now in the scenario, root user has created a script for itself with the commands of administrator, with the commands of root, with the commands of sbin. Now root user was doing the job, but suppose now root user is going outside and he is not there to run the script, he is not there to run that executable. Now root user do what? It has given the right to other user For example, user 1, it has given the right to user 1 to execute the script. So user 1 can execute the script. But when the user 1 execute the script, and suppose the root user is not present, so root user says that you will run the script when it needed, when we want to do the task, I will tell you, you will run the script. Now when the normal user 1 run the script, then what happened? It will run by the normal user's privilege. It will run by the normal user's UID, and because of that UID it will get the privilege of that normal user, and system will not allow that user to run the administrator command. So you see what happens when the normal user run that command of that normal user, then what happened? No output. So when the script runs, the user get the permission to run, it will run. But inside the script it is having the commands which is only run by the root user. But because the script is running the privilege of user, it is not done the task. It will not done the job, because the commands will not be executed. It will not do the job. It will just finish without error, or sometime with errors, because the script will be executed by the user's UID. Now in that case, root can do what? It can set the UID of root user on that script. Now it is also harmful or dangerous, because it will become uncontrolled. Uncontrolled, that means when the user sets the UID of its own to that script, so whoever runs that script, no matter user 1 runs, user 2 runs, user 3 runs, user 4 runs, the system will think that it is run by the root user, because the root user's UID is set on that file. So whenever anyone runs it, it will be executed by the root user. It will get the privilege of root user. Now this is difficult, this is dangerous, because why? Because there is no control here. Anyone can run. User 1 run, it will still, system will see it is run by root. If user 2 runs, still it will see like it is run by root. If user 3 runs, it will still say that user root runs. So for example, what I will do here, I will set this UID on this cat command. Now this is also a executable file, and remember, when previously it was run by user 1, it was showing that the user 1 has a. Now I will do what? Remember, the owner is root. So I will do what? I will set the UID of root on it. Now again we'll use the same chmod command. Now the default permission is what? 755. So I don't want to change the default one. So I will keep the default as it is. Now only I want to do what? I want to enable the SUID, and that is what? The third bit value is 4. Now when we do this, we will see the permission here, and this file is now showing it is corrupted. Red means it is corrupted, because it should not be done on this file. This is the command binary. Now for example, I am showing this. Now here you will see under the user's permission, you will see the S here. Instead of X, we will see S here. Now that means numerically we can do what? We can add U plus S if we want to give this, if you want to set the UID by symbolical way. So by symbolical way we can do this, and for numerical way we can use this. Now after setting this, what happens now? Whoever runs the script, whoever runs this binary, it will be executed by the owner of the file, and that is what? Root. So system feels that this file and this executable or this binary is executed by root, no matter who execute it. Now for example, I will go to this user here, and again I will run the cat command. Now remember, user 1 run this cat command on TTY2. This is TTY2 terminal. But when we see the process here with this PS command, what we see here, that cat command is executed on the terminal 2, but who executed? It is root. It is root who executed. Why? Because system is running this UID of root is set on this file, in this binary file. So whoever runs it, it shows that the root user is executing it, and it is run by the privilege of root. So it will give the file, it will give the executable privilege of root, but it is difficult to manage because it is dangerous, because anyone can run it, and whoever runs it, it will get the privilege of root, the owner of the file, whoever the owner. Right now it is owner of the file is root. Now I will close this. So this is what SGID. Now if we want to remove it, then we can remove it by numerical way. We can use chmod 0755. We will mention 0 there specifically, or we can do give u minus s. Oh, sorry. Chmod u minus s. And it will remove SGID. So this is what SGID. So when you set the SGID, the owner of the group, owner of the file will be root. That means executed by the owner user, that is root here. I will give you one more example here. This is what we have done it on this file, but I will give you an example of this. Remember this, which this fdisk command. This command belongs to super user. It is belong to root user. That means if normal users try to run this command with this option, they will not get any output. So this user is a normal user. Now if it is try to run this command with this option, it gets no output. Why? Because it is running by user's privilege. Now what? I will set the UID of root user on this file. So when you check the permission of this file, which is under USR sbin fdisk, so we can see this same permission, that owner user is having read, write, execute, and all the other users are having read and execute. So user can execute the file, it can execute, but it will not get the output. The work is not doing, it is not doing the job, because it is only for the super user. Now if I set this user root's UID on the file, then what happens? I will set it chmod u plus s on this USR sbin fdisk. Now we see the SUID is set here, and it is showing the S here, and also remember it will show capital S again here if you don't have the execute permission. So if the user owner does not have the execute permission, then you will see the capital S. Small s, that means with execute permission, just like the GID and just like the sticky bit. Now this file on this executable binary, I have enabled the SUID. That means owner user roots UID is set on this file. Now whoever runs it, it will feel, the system will say, feel that it is run by the root user. Now again I will try to run it from this user. Remember it was not giving any output. Now when I run it, we'll get the output like root. Why we are getting the output like root? Because it is running like root. It is running by the privilege of root, because we have configured the SUID. Now it is for the user 1, it will be same for user 2, user 3, user 4, whatever. Now for example user 2 comes and it will try to run the fdisk, it can also see the output. If user 3 comes, if it runs it, it will see the output same. So whoever running it, it will feel like it is running like user root, because they are getting the privilege of root user. Now this is not the way to give the privilege. Now we can say that, we will say that this is the way we can give the commands of root user to normal user. No, it is not like that, because here we don't have any control. We can't control that who can run the file and who cannot execute the file. So if we want to give the privilege to normal users to run the to execute the root users command, so this is not the way to set the UID. Now they cannot do that. Still they can run it, but they cannot get the output because we have removed the SUID. Now if we want that normal users can run the root users command, can run the root users command, can run the root users privilege. Like we want to give a normal user a privilege of root user. So we can do that by using sudo. Because if suppose everything is done by only one account, that is root, then it can be difficult for the big organization. So that means what? There is only one administrator who is handling everything. So it can be very difficult. So for that, if you have a big organization, lots of servers, lots of things, then we can do different administrator. We can have different administrators. Level 1 administrator, level 2 administrator, level 3 administrator. So level 3, top level administrator, like they are having the root permission, they can do whatever they want. Level 2 permissions, they cannot do as much as the root user do. They will get least permission. Level 1 will get least privilege. So we can do that. We can give the normal users a privilege of root user and also in a controlled manner, and whatever we want, we can only give that permission. So we can do that by using the sudo permission. Now sudo means super user do. Super user do, whatever super users do. So we can do that, and we can give the normal user privilege by using the sudo. Now how to give the sudo permissions? So first we have a command vi sudo. Now when we run this command, it will open a file. It opens the sudo file, sudo configuration file, and in this configuration file we can configure to give the permission of permission to normal user. Now this sudo vi sudo command, it will open the file in vi editor because the default is vi, and it will not show any colors here. So there is no colors. That means we have to depend on ourselves to see the right value, right spelling, because if you give wrong spelling, there is no color to guide us. So there is no colors here. Now if you want to see it in the colors, this same file, and you want to edit it, then what we can do? We can open the file directly. The file is this. Under the etc, there is a file called sudoers. So when we use this vi sudo command, it opens it into the default editor. Default editor is vi. So either we can change the default editor to vim, or we can open it directly with vim. So this is the file. So we can open it by using the vim command. Under etc, there is a file called sudoers. So sudoers, that means whatever the super user does, super user doers. So we open the file here, and now we can see it in colors. This is the same file which we opened it with the vi sudo command. It says here the examples are provided at the bottom of the file for the collections of related commands which can then be delegated out to particular user or group. It is saying here that the file must be edited with the vi sudo command. Now we know the real file, so we can do it without the sudo file, vi sudo command. Now what we have here in the file, so we have these lines as comments. Remember, the lines in any configuration file we open, if we open any configuration file, so in the configuration file, whenever you see the lines starting with hash, these lines are called commented lines. Only the first hash is important. This first hash means the line is commented. Now after that, you, no matter how many hash you give and whatever the content you write, they will be hashed, they will be commented, they will be commented. That means when the machine, when the service read this file, it will ignore these lines, it will ignore these lines, it will not take these lines, these lines will be ignored. So these lines are like comment, it is like an information for us. You can see here, this is the information for us which is commented. Now here there are some lines which is not commented, like this one. So this one will be work, this one will be readed by the service. It says default required the getty, required TTY. That means to run this sudo you need TTY terminal. Default visible password, no, password will not be visible when you provide the password. Default always set to home. Then these are the other environment setting commands. Then you go to check, this is the command path setting, it is command path. The command path is sbin, bin, usr, sbin, usr, bin. So whatever the commands we have here, they will be considered in this sudo. Now here we can give the permission to normal users. Now for giving the permission to normal user, this is the format to give. First you have to mention the username, then you have to mention the machine name. Now machine name, and then you have to mention the command that you want to give to that particular user on that particular machine. For example, here we can see this line is not commented and it means root user, and root user is getting the permission of this sudo on all the machines. Now all means every machine. If suppose in the network we have multiple machines, so we can give a particular machine name here, but all means every machine. So whenever in any machine this root user logs in, so it will get this permission. Now what command it will get? So for command it is also added all. All means it is going to give all the commands to this root user. So root user has all the command permission on all the machines with all the options here. So it is having all the permissions with the options here. Now if we want to give any user permission just like root user, then we can add it like this. We have to mention the username, then we have to mention the machine name where we want to give permission, either we can say all, then we have to mention the specific command here, or we can mention the specific options also. Now if we want, then we can give all also, like if suppose I want to give some user a permission to all command, then I can give all here. Now root user is also having the sudo permission. Root user itself a root user, but also root user is having the sudo permissions because of this line here. Now I want to give the normal user permission, so what I will do, I will add the username here, and I want to give it to all machines, so I will say all. Then for the command I will mention all here because I want to give all the commands to that user with all options. So just like that I have added user 1 also. I'm giving user 1 all the commands just like root. Now if suppose you don't want to give the all commands, then what you can do, we can specify the specific command. Like for example here you can see for these it is mentioning this command, mount command, CD-ROM command, unmount command, and then on MNT. So it is what mount command on this directory and unmount command on this directory. Both are sbin commands. We can give other commands like this. We can directly write the command. Whatever the command we want to give the user, we can directly write the command with the absolute path and also with the options. Now if we don't want to give, if suppose we want to give multiple commands to the particular user, then we can use this command alias. We can use these command aliases. These are command aliases like networking. So instead of giving all, I will mention networking. Then that user will only able to run the networking command. Or I can mention software. So it can only use the software command. If I mention services, so it can only use the services. Storage, that means only storage. delegating, processes, locate or drivers command. These are the command aliases. Now what the meaning of networking? Now if I give the networking, then what commands can the user runs? It is not showing here. It is there up in this file. So when you go up, you will see the command aliases here. This is command aliases, and the command aliases is here. It is created for networking, and this is the command to create the command aliases. This is the command alias, this is networking, which we see there, and this command means, this networking means is equal to what? All these commands. So this is the alias which is created here. Now this is for the networking, this alias is for the software. So when you mention software, so user can run these all commands, and when we mention services, so user can run all these commands. Now these command aliases is not enabled. If you see, these are commented. So if suppose I give some user command for networking, I mention networking, then it will not work because the alias is not configured here, it is not enabled. So if I mention the networking to some user, then I have to remove this hash from here, then it will get enabled, and then the user knows that what the networking means. Networking means these commands. So if we want to give the user networking commands, then we have to enable the networking here. We have to enable the alias here. And how we can do that? We have to just remove the hash here. And now you can see it is now showing in colors. Now that means it is now enabled, and if I give networking for any user, so our system, this sudo, knows that networking means these commands. Now we gave all. Now all means user can run all the commands for anything. Now we want to give any user, so we can just add those users here one by one. Now if you have 50 users and you want to give 50 users some permission or some command, so it is not easy to give all the username here. So what we can do, we can add them into a group. We can create the group and we can add them into that group, and then we can give the group permission. So if we want to give the permission to the group here, then instead of mentioning the username, we will mention the group name. But when we mention the group name, we have to mention it like this. Now like this means, if you see here, it is not commented. It is not commented. That means this line is active, and this group, there is a group which is called wheel, and this is getting all the permission of sudo. So the group is there which is wheel group, and that wheel group has all the permission from sudo. And for mentioning the group, what we can do, we will start the name by this percentage. So if we want to mention the username, we will mention the user here, and if we want to mention the group name, then we can mention it like this. So what I did here, I have added user 1 and I have given user 1 all the permissions. Now I will save the file. Now when I save the file, it will give me error here. It says it is read only, and that is why it told you that you should use the vi sudo command. But because I am root, I can do edit the file. So what I can do, I can save it forcefully. Now when you save it, directly it is going to use. It will be used, and then the users will start using the permissions. Now what you will do here, we will try to check the user 1 is able to run those commands or not. So I will go to the other terminal, and then here I have logged in as a user 1. So I will try to see to run this command. It was not giving the output because it is the admin command, root command, and now still it is not giving any output. So user 1, we have given the permission privilege from the sudo to run everything, all the commands, but still it is not getting anything from this command. Now because why? Because if user 1 wants to use the sudo permission, then it has to mention it, and then it has to do it like this. So if the user wants to use the sudo permissions, then it has to use the sudo command. Sudo and then whatever the command it wants to run. So whatever the root command, administrator command it wants to run, first it has to give sudo and then it can use the command with any option. Now when you try to press enter here, it says here that we trust you have received the usual lecture from the local system administrator. It usually boils down to these three things, that is, respect the privacy of others, things before you type, and with the great power comes great responsibility. So it is just giving you the warning here because you are going to get the permission of root user, and then it is saying what is the password for your account, user 1. It is not asking the password of root, it is asking the password for this user itself. Now why it is asking the password? Because maybe somebody else is running this sudo command instead of user 1. Maybe suppose user 1 is logged in here and the terminal is open, and user go somewhere to do something, somebody else come to this terminal and then run the command to run the sudo command to do something. So it cannot do this because it needs the user password first. So user give its password and it gets the output. Now because ease of use, it will not ask the password every time, it will cache the password for 5 minutes. So now when it runs the command, it is not asking the password, it is just running the command. Because it has cached the password for 5 minutes, after that it will do what? It will again ask the password for that user itself. Now user 1 can run any command and it is getting the output because it is having the permission of sudo. Now if I try to use this thing from other user, like I have logged in here with this user 2. I have logged in with user 2, and if I try to use this command, it is not working because it is not root user. Now it will try to use sudo here. Now when it try to use the sudo command, then what happened here? Now remember, this user is not in the sudoers file. We have not mentioned this username. Now what happened? It is getting this output here, it is getting the warning here, and it is asking the password for root for the user 2. Now user 2 will provide the password, and what happens? When it press enter, it sees this message here. It says user is not in the sudoers file, and this incident will be reported. Now what that means? It is saying that you are not in the sudoer files, that means you are not getting any permission, and also this incident will be reported. That means this incident will be reported to the root user. So if we have any mailing service configured, so the root user will get the mail regarding this, that which user try to run the sudoers, which command it try to run, on which terminal it try to run. Every information is reported. So this information is sent to the root user as a mail if we have configured the mail services. Now if we don't have a mail services, then still it will get reported in the log files. So that incident will be reported in the log file, in the security log. Actually, if you see the log, all the logs are under var log, and here you have the secure log. So when you see that, you will see the report here. It is saying that the user 2 was successfully used, but here you have this, that user 2, and the message was user not in sudoers on this terminal and this directory. It was trying to run root command and the command which it was trying to run. So the whole incident is actually reported and logged. Now this is how we can give the root privilege to normal users. Now if we are using graphical interface, there is an easy way to do this. So for the graphical interface, we have an easy way to do this. We can just make the user administrator. If you remember, there is a graphical tool here to create users and manage users. Now in this, when you select any user here, so here we have the option to change the account type. Normally it is standard, but we can make them administrator. Now when you make them administrator, then what happens? this user becomes the administrator. This user can run the administrator's command, and this user can use the sudo command actually. Remember, the user 2 was not in the sudoers file, but when I make this user an administrator type in the graphical, then what happened here? It was getting the error here. Now when it try to run it, it is asking the password. Okay, I have to log out because it is a graphical. It gets the output. Now it is also in the sudoers file. Now how it works, we have not added this user into a sudoers file. Now because of the graphical interface, we use that tool here. Now what that tool do, when you use that tool to make any user an administrator, when you use this graphical tool to make any user an administrator, then basically what it do here, remember the group wheel. If you check the user 2 here, it make that user member of this wheel group, and this wheel group is by default having the permission of sudo. If you check the sudoers file, so there is a wheel group and it is also having all the permissions. So this is one of the easy way to give user a sudo permission. We can just make the user member of this wheel group. So if you make any user member of this group, so that way that user will get the sudoers permission, sudo permission, and that what's this default permission this graphical tool do. Now again, if I change this user to administrator to normal user, then what it will do, it will change it to it will remove that user from the wheel group, or I can do it graphically, command line here, gpasswd -d for user 2, I will remove it from wheel group. Now it is not a member of wheel group. Now when you see it in graphical, again you will see it is now again standard. So in graphical, when you make the user administrator, so it do what? It actually make the user member of the wheel group. We can do it from command line also. This is the easy way to give the sudo permission. If you don't want to write the directly, you don't want to write this file directly, so you can just add the user into wheel group, but it will get all the permission. But if you want to give a controlled permission, like only networking, only software, only data, only storage, then we have to go to this sudoers file, and then we can use those command aliases. And these are some advanced permissions we have, which we can use to give users. So we have the advanced permission, like we have UID, we have seen the sticky bit, we have seen the SGID, SUID, and also we have seen the sudoers and sudo permissions.